In this video lesson, we explored the Battle of Saratoga and the battles of the American Revolutionary War on the land and on the sea. In 1777, London officials devised a complicated plan to sever or cut off New England from the rest of the colonies, capture the Hudson River Valley and Albany in New York, and destroy any American army in New England. The plan was for General John Burgoyne to lead a force of 9,200 into upper New York from Canada through the Lake Champlain route onto the Hudson River Valley. General Howe's army in New York is to move north up the Hudson River Valley. Colonel Barry St. Leger to lead a smaller British force around Lake Ontario and then west into New York's Mohawk Valley. Burgoyne's army, moving out of Canada, captured Fort Ticonderoga, but met very heavy American resistance at Lake Champlain and beyond. Howe, who was encamped at New York, failed to move up the Hudson River Valley to support Burgoyne, so he changes the plan, unknown to Burgoyne. General Washington, who had been watching Howe's army, was stunned to see Howe's army embark on warships and sail south. Howe had decided to move ahead and capture Philadelphia. In August 1777, at the battles of Fort Stanwix and Oskani, St. Leger's army, supported by the Mohawk Indians and Joseph Brant, fought the American army, which was supported by some Germans and some Oneida Indians. Both were American victories, despite heavy losses. On October 17, 1777, at the Battle of Saratoga, General Burgoyne fought an American army led by General Horatio Gates. Saratoga proves to be a pivotal engagement for both sides of the war and is called the turning point of the American Revolution. Horatio Gates is going to win the Battle of Saratoga, and Burgoyne will be forced to surrender, which is the first clear American victory. Saratoga ranks as one of the most decisive battles in world history, and as a result of this battle, its significance is that it convinced France to openly ally itself with the American cause against England. In late 1777, Washington engaged Howe's army in the battles of Brandywine Creek and Germantown, efforts to stop the British march on Philadelphia, which ended as defeats for the Continental Army. Following his defeats at Brandywine Creek and Germantown, Washington establishes a winter camp at Valley Forge. Howe's army encamps very close to Valley Forge in the comforts of the city of Philadelphia. For Washington's army, the winter of 1777 and 1778 was very long and bitterly cold for him and his soldiers. In the fall of 1777, attacks by Indians against Americans escalated in the western interior, particularly in the Mohawk Valley, the Ohio Valley, and Kentucky. Battles in the western interior involved Indian tribes allied with both sides to a much higher degree than seen in the east. There, two nations of the Iroquois Confederacy, the Oneidas and the Tuscaroras, sided with Americans against the British, the Mohawk chief Joseph Brant, and four other nations of the Iroquois Confederacy. Between late fall 1707 and 1779, Brant and the British ravaged large areas of the frontier from Pennsylvania to New York in a succession of bloody ambushes and slaughters. In the summer of 1778, Washington ordered General John Sullivan to conduct a campaign of total destruction and devastation on all Iroquois villages in central New York, unleashing a campaign of terror lasting into the fall of 1779. Over 40 Indian villages were completely obliterated. By 1780, few Indians on the frontier remained neutral as the war expanded into North Carolina and present-day Tennessee, a scene where complex alliances and betrayals occurred between American militia and the Indians. Betrayals of both militiamen and Indians led to violent reprisals, which finally drove Indians either into the hills, to starvation, into the arms of the British in Canada, or into the arms of the Spanish in the West. In 1784, the pro-British Iroquois in western New York signed the Treaty of Fort Stanwix, ceding away most of their land, the first treaty between the United States and an American nation. Between 1778 and 1779, Americans led by George Rogers Clark captured forts in Kalaskia, Cahokia, and Vincennes from the British. Clark's successes in the West may have forced the British to cede the region north of the Ohio River to the United States in the Paris peace talks, ending the war. The American Navy was never a serious threat to England's powerful Royal Navy. Though small, it did lay the foundations of a distinguished and brilliant tradition. The U.S. Navy's primary contribution to the war effort was in destruction of British merchant shipping, carrying the war to waters around the British Isles. In addition, close to 1,000 American privateers, with nearly 70,000 men, captured about 600 British prizes, which means ships, proving to be more damaging than the ships of the regular American Navy. Privately owned, privateers were motivated by patriotism and profit, and brought in critically needed gold and other valuables, and also forced England's navy to divert ships and manpower from the war effort to deal with them. By the same token, privateering also diverted manpower and resources from the main American war effort and led to speculation and graft. British warships captured similar numbers of American merchantmen and privateers during the war. The infant U.S. Navy and privateers served to raise American morale by giving patriots something to celebrate at a time when there were few victories. The damage they inflicted on British shipping forced English merchants to pay exorbitant insurance rates on ships and cargoes, and compelled ships to sail together in convoys for protection. We'll look more at how individuals were affected by the American Revolution as we investigate them more in class.